Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this webinar today, brought to you by Innovate Hawaii, part of the Hawaii Technology Development Corporation, known also as HTDC. My name is Ellen, and I'm the Economic Development Specialist here at HTDC. Before we dive into the webinar content, I would like to remind everyone that this session has been recorded and will be sent to all who registered. And you're also welcome to send in your questions during the session through the Q&A function, and we'll address them when appropriate or during the Q&A portion of this webinar. So today we have Akemi Hiat from Hidden Gears here to talk about Klaviyo, an email and SMS marketing automation platform. Akemi Hiat is the head of design and project management at Hidden Gears. Her background in the arts informs her approach to crafting thoughtful interfaces that balances beauty with technical performance and extensibility. She was a fellow of the Good Work Institute and is a contributor to the Shopify Partners blog. I also love to share that Akemi and Hidden Gears are also instructors in our cohort 4, an e-commerce and digital marketing cohort that we are running right now for manufacturers here in Hawaii. Another thing that I would like to bring your attention to, if you're a Hawaii-based manufacturer already leveraging the power of email marketing, I would like to invite you to check out our Klaviyo pilot program. I will leave the link in the chat later so you can check it out. We are currently taking applications from manufacturers to be considered for vendor engagement grants, valued up to $7,000 per company. Applications will close on February 14th, this coming Monday at 5 p.m. Hawaii time. Again, as I mentioned, I will leave a link with details about this pilot program in the chat, so feel free to check it out and please apply if you think that this is something that could really help your company. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Akemi to take the lead for today's session.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, hi, Akemi. Yep.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me, Ellen. Thank you for the introduction, and thanks to everyone who's attending for this workshop. Hopefully we cover a lot and it's informative for you guys. So Ellen did a great job of introducing us. We are a boutique e-commerce agency based here in Honolulu, focusing on Shopify stores, digital marketing, development, and design. But today we're going to talk about Klaviyo and email marketing, which a lot of our clients use and really is an invaluable part of your marketing suite and one of the channels that you should look at optimizing. This is just a bit about me. We are Klaviyo partners, Google Ads and Analytics certified, Shopify partners and Shopify experts. I'll leave my contact information at the end in case you have any questions for your business or want to chat more and maybe apply to the program for Klaviyo optimization that Ellen mentioned. A bit about why we're focusing on email marketing. It's a super powerful channel for a few reasons. It can be one of the lowest cost and highest return marketing channels for your e-commerce business in the sense that the level of effort to set it up is relatively low, but the level of return can be pretty high without a large spend, as you would find in advertising. And also crucially, you're going to own all this data. You're not going to have the reliance on like a third-party ad network, and you're really going to be able to talk to your customers more directly and therefore personalize your marketing for them. And, like we're focusing on Klaviyo and Shopify in particular as the two platforms today. If you're working with another e-commerce platform or you're working with another email marketing platform, this general premise of this course will still apply, but we're actually going to be walking through the back end of how to set things up and how to look at customer profiles. And so we're going to be using use cases that apply to Klaviyo and Shopify specifically. We're also not going to go into a ton of information about like how to set up a campaign, how to create a list. This does presume you're doing some level of that already and looking more at how to use the data to drive smarter marketing and grow revenue for your store. Why we recommend Klaviyo: it has a very thorough emphasis on data and the integration with Shopify to sync customer attributes. So what products are they buying? When did they last visit the site? Are they abandoning their carts? Things of that nature. It can also allow you to do some dynamic couponing to send codes for discounts on a future order. There's amazing smart tooling behind the pre-built flows, which is the term they use for sort of like a drip campaign based on certain behaviors. And then even on the acquisition side for the contacts, sign-up forms, pop-ups that you can do without without coding. And then a lot of what I think a lot of, more mature merchants get into is like getting into this predictive ability. Klaviyo can predict the lifetime value of your customers, whether they're likely to unsubscribe or be churned out of the list, and more. So there's just a large repository of data that they're collecting there to make smart recommendations for you. And when we talk about, any marketing, we want to focus on what are our goals, what are our KPIs that we're looking to hit. These are really the common ones that you're going to pay attention to when it comes to email. The main one would be, not just the total revenue from a campaign, but revenue per recipient. So, if you would say have 10,000 people on your email list, let's say 20% of those people would put you into a pretty good place if they were opening those emails. So 20% of a 10,000 person list would be 2,000 people who are actually opening your email regularly. And then maybe of those 2,000 people, there's 50 people who are clicking it and going to the site. So you can kind of see how the funnel narrows down. You might have quite a large list, but the number of engaged contacts will always be relatively small, and that's typical. These figures for open rate and click rate are good. These are something I would say you want to work towards. You can always have room for improvement, but it is pretty standard in terms of what we see. And you want to just sort of work not just to grow the revenue, the open rate, the click rate, but to keep it from being depressed. And that's where the unsubscribe and spam rate comes in. So you want to keep that hopefully, low 0.2 to 0.3% of people who are experiencing spammy content, who are unsubscribing because that content isn't relevant to them. And the reason you want that is not just so that your marketing performs better, but it actually goes into what Klaviyo determines your deliverability to be. So if you're sending content that is perceived as spammy, your deliverability for your messages will actually go down. You'll have a harder time reaching the people that you want to reach. So really just good to keep in mind the revenue total for campaigns, the revenue per recipient, and then the open rate, the click rate, and the unsubscribe rate. I'm going to walk you guys through just how to get started if you do not have an integration set up yet. And even if there are folks here who do have it set up, this might be a good refresher because it's a fairly complex tool. And so there's a lot of areas where data can flow back and forth. So just as a kind of a gut check. The first thing you're going to want to do if you don't have an account is to go to klaviyo.com and log in and create an account. You can have a free account up to 5,000 subscribers. Actually, I believe that's 500. I'm sorry, 500 subscribers. Their billing structure is based both on how many people you're actively emailing. And so if say you don't plan to start email marketing right away, you can get your feet wet and look into the tooling before you commit. All you need is your Shopify URL and the business contact information. Klaviyo will tailor their support content to you based on the goals you're trying to hit. Of course, ideally, we want all three of these, but they kind of track to very different customer journeys. If you're growing your audience, you're probably either a newer company or new to email marketing. And it's not really going to make sense for you to jump into optimizing revenue through email before you have that audience established. If you're more of a mature business and you've been doing email marketing for a while, you might want to focus on building that loyalty and returning customers. Or you just want to sort of get to the fastest revenue as quickly as possible, or you can just explore. So try to take advantage of all of the resources they provide because they'll really tailor content and recommendations to you depending on how you set up that onboarding process. So there's about 5 steps involved in the onboarding. I'll just whip through this quickly so that we can then get into the fun stuff. You're going to connect the app by going to the app store on Shopify, adding the app with this green button, and then you'll see it ultimately on your back end of your store appear here under apps, Klaviyo email marketing. You can ignore the other ones here. And then similarly to that, when you're in your Klaviyo dashboard, you're going to go into integrations on the left here. and you're going to make sure that you see that Shopify is set up. As you go and you add the app, it's going to ask you for permission to sync data between the two, which you want. And then you're going to like confirm that that is integrated with the store. So you're going to have to put in the URL that you have and check this box that says automatically add Klaviyo JavaScript on site. And then pick a default list for all your subscribers to go into. I've already set this up, but I'm just going to show you what that kind of looks like here. Klaviyo also does support SMS marketing, which I'm not going to cover today, but if there is interest, maybe in the future. And this is also like a super powerful tool you can use in similar way as email. So you can see that Shopify is enabled. I'm also going to go into my account under Setup Web Tracking. It knows that I've already checked that box I showed previously, and it's asking me to copy and paste this code snippet into my product liquid template. This allows Klaviyo to track whether people have viewed or engaged with products on the store. So for Shopify, it'll actually be under your current theme and then edit code. And this might feel a little overwhelming. So you can always, get outside help to do this, but most all Shopify themes have a product page liquid template. And then clicking into that delivers this page. I just went to the very bottom and copy and pasted that here. So it's really just a copy and paste in the product file, and I saved it, and that's all. You can confirm that that's set up, which in my case it is. I think it's just cached, but I've been testing that. And you reconfirm it. So a few different areas where you just want to make sure data is flowing consistently. It usually will let you know that that is working well. And then we can start to actually go about getting subscribers. So I'm just going to walk through the steps. It's adding the app through Klaviyo, adding the app through Shopify, creating your account, connecting your store, installing the code snippet, both what I just showed on the web tracking. And then if you want to be doing forms, we're going to do that as well here in sign-up forms. So a couple different ways, basically 3 different ways you can get customers, or you can get an audience growing through email. One of them, here's my Biscotti store. One of them we'll call like an embed. Basically, it's a form embedded onto a page of the site. I'm going to just subscribe with my email here, and in this case, I'm getting a secondary step where I'm being asked, what is my birthday? So I can get a little treat. So once you get the initial sort of email that is being
Cami. Wait. Is Cami? Hey, Cam. Oh my God. Let's see.
Test.
Okay, wait, I can hear you now. Can you hear us?
Yeah, sorry about that. It seems like a critical moment. My headphones decided to die on me. But I'll just recap. I'm showing you guys the embed forms for newsletters that you can have hosted on the page. So what I was showing you guys before is here on this example store, I've actually created this whole form in Klaviyo and it's being injected into the page that I'm using. The reason it can do that is because I've done my setup already for the two platforms to speak to one another. And the area that you'll set those things up is within sign up forms here. You also want to make sure that this code snippet is added to your store. Sometimes it gets a little cached, but because it's appearing here, I know that it has worked. And this is a similar copy and paste into that theme code that I showed you guys. It's a little technical, so I'm happy to support with any questions anytime anyone has feedback. And there's also great documentation on Klaviyo's site. So in my embed form, the green indicating that it's live, the edit form option in this case will show you sort of a very like visual design tool for how to create this form. In this case, it's quite simple. One of the things you're going to want to make sure that you do is that anytime you have like a field that a customer can interact with, whether they're putting information in or clicking the subscribe button, that there's a profile property that is assigned to it. This is what tells the Klaviyo form that that email address should be mapped to an email field and what have you. And then the subscribe button is also carrying with it an action to submit the form, the list that it should go to, which is super important to make sure you have a list that is actually receiving everybody. And then after submit, a couple different options, show the next step, go to a certain page, close the form. In this case, the way that I created that birthday is that after they initially provided their email, I'm going into asking them a little bit more about themselves. So this is a super like strategic tool that you can use depending on like your business or sort of how you want to market to people. On the right, the outdoor voices example explains, hey, we're asking you for your birthday, so we can give you like a little present as a thank you for joining. And then optionally, you can select preferences to get like only emails about women's apparel or men's apparel. So really thinking about like how you can use other custom attributes in the form to learn more about your subscribers. Another option, pop-ups and flyouts. On the left is an example of one I set up on my Biscotti store, which is offering a 15% off to the customer. And on the right, a similar one from a client we worked with, offering sort of a gated discount and also explaining what they can expect from the email. It's a bit more branded and you know, very like color coordinated with everything else. Both of these actually have other steps involved in them, similar to the embed. So since I'm promising a discount for sign up, you know, on the submission here, it's going to the next step. The next step is delivering them a coupon that I've created in my store that they can use right away. So, and then with the Claire example, they actually go on to gather SMS and so on. So just like super interesting, like gated processes for learning more about people and giving them different deals. And then the final way people will be adding to your list is through checkout. So if they're actually a customer who's making an order and they need to provide their email in order to check out, we have that email captured, and usually this is settable in Shopify, but this checkbox would be like defaulted on. So customers will then get emailed and added to the list because they checked out through your store. So in this example from my Biscotti store, which I'll close now, I have already been gathering some subscribers through my pop-up, through my embed, and through checkout. I'm going to take a look and see these profiles. So under profiles on the left, you can see here all of the people I have on my list at the moment. You can see how recently they were active on the site and when they joined. My test accounts are there, where their location was. So this can be gathered either from their checkout like address if they were a customer, and if they were not a customer, their IP address. This is useful for tailoring messaging around, like if you have certain areas you ship to or serve, or if you want to do emails at a specific time zone, so that those people see it at the right, like at 9 a.m. their local time, that kind of thing. Each profile carries with it like a clickable link. So let's say I want to explore a particular journey. I'm going to look at this email for, I'm going to call him Charles. We don't have a first and last name for him because he only subscribed via the embed form where we did not ask for the name, and he never was a customer. We also don't have his name. So under Charles's profile, I can see like a timeline of how he's interacted with my store to date. He subscribed through the embed form. He was active on the site. He did receive one of our email campaigns about new flavors, and he opened them a few times. And he ultimately clicked the link and then went to the store and viewed a product, but he didn't do anything more. He didn't check out or anything of that nature. So for me, if I were to take that data and paint a picture of this person, he's someone that would be a potential customer. He's obviously interested enough to join the list, and he is reading the content, and he's even going and looking at like a product he might like, but he is not yet taking the leap. The other thing I can see about Charles, because he signed up on the newsletter and he did fill out that birthday thing, is that we have his birthday here brought in through a custom property. And this was done because I set up the form to map the birthday field to a custom attribute. So really you can set up anything. This can be like a quiz question, a questionnaire, anything you think will help you deliver a better experience to people. And as it happens, his birthday is today. So I could even create a flow for everyone whose birthday happens that day to send, Charles maybe a little birthday discount and convert him from a potential purchaser into a customer. It's just like going into each profile. This is very useful for like debugging a particular customer's issue. But if you also just want like a larger insight about, who's who. And another example I'll just share is like, let's look at Kavika here, who joined our list also the same way that Charles did, but then immediately basically placed an order for 10 of the vanilla biscotti for a total of $80. So my product is $7.50. So an order of $80 is pretty high, for a product of that like cost. This is somebody that I definitely would say is a super engaged customer. He's a VIP. I'm going to decide that any customer who has a lifetime order value of over a certain number is a VIP. This is a power user and somebody I really want to cultivate. You can kind of see how that data will just sort of paint a picture for you of how customers might be engaged with, in the future and what content might be appropriate for them. I'm just going to run through a couple of other profiles we have in here. As I mentioned, Charles has really never ordered, but has viewed the product. Like a Wendy Wong, who's on our list, has never clicked an email, never purchased or even viewed the product. So she could be a churn risk. She just might not be interested in our product, but we're going to try to win her back. She's going to be a harder sell. And then we talked about this customer. And then we have another profile here and a new customer, Joan, who joined via the pop-up, and she was given the 15% off welcome coupon. She's ordered maybe one product, and so she's relatively new to the brand, and has just started to experiencing what the product is. So let's just keep these 4 kind of personas in mind, because I'm going to walk you through sort of different methods we can use to engage each of them moving ahead. The next thing you're going to want to do after you have your initial profiles starting to populate through your forms, your pop-ups, and your store is that you're going to want to really look at your lists and your segments in Klaviyo. So what is the difference between a list and a segment? There's a lot. Most email marketing is going to be more effective if you have very highly segmented lists and content. So sending a campaign to a slice of a particular type of content will usually outperform a campaign that is just sent to everybody. So it's not a one size fits all strategy, and it can be tempting to see that, you know, hey, every time I email, I get sales, and just decide I'm going to email more people all the time about everything that, you know, happens. But as a strategy, that's really not your best bet, and that causes fatigue and overwhelm and ultimately low engagement. So we talk about lists and segments as really powerful tools in Klaviyo because segments in particular are based on, you know, what I sort of just covered with those 4 examples, like certain customer profiles that want a certain type of content. The list in Klaviyo is static. So we have, you know, newsletter as the list that is the source for all of our pop-ups or our checkout or what have you. You're going to need one sort of master list to hold all of those people. But beyond that, there's not really any nuance between people who've ordered for the first time, people who've made, you know, maybe it's their 5th order, people who are opening email, people who are not. It's just like everyone's all in one group. So that's where segments are really useful. Segments in Klaviyo are dynamic, so they are based on a set of definitions, and they automatically update over time. As people's customer behavior changes, they might be added or removed from segments depending on their behavior. This is like one of the main, I think if there's anything you can take away from this course, it's the importance of creating segments. They can be created on sort of 2 broad sort of types of data. One is behaviors, so what someone has done or not done, whether they interacted with an email and they opened it, they clicked it, they marked it as spam, they forwarded it to a friend, what have you, or their interactions with your store. So they ordered a product, they started checkout, they viewed a product, they returned a product, or they were just present on the site itself. And then the other types of properties or definitions around segments can be about properties, qualities about a person, such as their location, maybe what their time zone is, how they arrived on their list, how long they've been there, where they're at sort of in their customer journey. Are they a new customer? Have they been someone who's on the list for years and just never like bit the bullet, you know, tried the item? Or have they been a long time like loyal VIP? And then custom properties, so gender, birthday, age, size, things like that. These are where you would gather this information through your initial sign-up form. And then maybe preferences around what kind of emails they want to get, how frequently they would want to get it, or any other sort of questionnaire quiz items. An example of this would be like we work with an apparel client whose focus is really on fit. So they might send a questionnaire out that's delivered through a Klaviyo form about what do customers want to see in their new product line. And that data will then ultimately get mapped to their Klaviyo profile so that when they announce that product, they can say, okay, well, this was a product that, like, let's say is great for like a plus size audience. Let's use that data to make a segment based around that and like send that campaign just to that audience. So based on sort of my initial 10 subscribers or so, we have a few sort of like trends that we're seeing, a few different types of people that we're wanting to target. We have some people who've never ordered. We have some people who've ordered one item only. We have some people who've received emails, but they've never clicked or ordered. And we have people who've ordered numerous times. An example. So Charles is our potential purchaser. He's viewed the product at least once in the last 30 days. He's clicked the email at least once, or he's been active on site and he's placed orders. He's never placed an order of all time. So going back to my segments, Klaviyo will also usually pre-populate these for you, and you can go and edit from there, but they do that to get you a running start so that you can use the tool quickly. If I go into my potential purchasers here, you can see that there's this arrow for view definition, which reiterates the definition I sort of just explained. But as I go in, I can see 7 people fit this category. and I'm going to edit the definition so that I can show you how this is done. Zoom in here. Okay. You can kind of see that it's based on first what someone has done or not done. They viewed product, and then you can pick the time frame, and you can pick, ever, more than once, greater than or equal than. You can even do if they viewed this particular product. So let's say it's going to be products where the price was $7.50. You can add so many different tailored things between the information in your store and your products and the information you have about the customer. And then it's basically stacking a series of and or logic. In this case, it's or, which you could pick. So it's anyone who's viewed the product at least once in the last 30 days, or has clicked email, or has been active on site, as well as someone who has never ordered. And then this last one is usually going to be apparent in every segment you set up. You want that person to not be suppressed. Suppressed is Klaviyo's term for somebody who is not engaged, and so they're just not emailing them, because if you include someone who's suppressed, your metrics will go down. So as a general rule of thumb, you want to make sure that you're not emailing people who have a suppressed status in Klaviyo. And then I'm going to just update that segment here. And nothing changed in terms of these folks' behaviors, but if they did. So for example, if I then went and ordered a product from the Biscotti today, I would no longer be in this segment because I do not meet the criteria any longer. So you see how that's dynamic, and you see how there's a lot of sort of just like check logic in place to do that. Let's look at the churn risk one as well. So we have potential purchasers, then we have churn risks, edit definition, never ordered, as well as never clicked email in the last 180 days, as well as viewed products, never. And then in this case, I would also add if someone is not suppressed, because any person we're emailing should not be suppressed. So that's just the best practice. And another thing I think we'll go through here is we can look at our VIP segment that we've created. Okay. Only two people. Only two people because we are asking this for the revenue of that customer to be more than $50 overall time. That's looking back at their entire history. My example store is only a few days old, so for most people, this would probably be a higher number. But you can determine what that looks like to you, and you can judge, for you, what makes somebody a VIP. Maybe it's revenue, or maybe it's just that they've been on the email list since the beginning. So, you can add that, like, let's say properties about someone. We also want this to be someone who, let's see, whose profile was created before today. So like the original, their original audience, let's say. And then that will add into it. In this case, both people meet it, but you can kind of see like how I'm walking through how you can layer in the metrics there. Last one we'll look at is a new customer. And I'm going to talk about new customer being different from new subscribers. Okay, so new subscribers are people who are on your list, but new customer are people who are new customers, people who bought. Here we can see that we've got that they're in the list and they were added in the last 30 days and they've ordered product as well. 30 days is a pretty standard amount of time to be assessing whether someone is new or not, but that could vary depending on what kind of product you're selling. So we've gone through about 4 different scenarios that kind of map to those personas: the new customer, the VIP, the potential purchasers, and the churn risks. And now we're going to actually go into the emails that they're going to be getting. So I have sent out in my campaigns area an email previously You can see here that it gives me my metrics that I spoke about earlier. Because I sent this email out before after some of the customers bought, it's not tracking revenue for that campaign, because it's not taking credit for those people buying, based on that. But to make a new campaign, I can either clone an existing template, or I can create a new one. Again, I'm going to pick email for this example. You would name it. This is an internal name that you will use to reference it. It's not something the customer sees. You will always pick, the list you're going to send to. And in this example, I'm just going to say that we're going to send it to the potential purchasers. So let's try to create a scenario where we can cultivate them. Purchasers. Usually you want this to be toggled on to skip the recently emailed profiles. And you also want to include tracking if you're using any Google Analytics that gets synced to for reporting. As you continue on to content, you can see that you're going to want to have a really compelling subject line. That's just a must-have. So maybe if we know that it's potential purchasers, we're going to tailor the content to them and say, you can do some kind of on-brand or cheeky copy. And we're using the subject line and the preview text to kind of indicate, what they might expect. I see that there's a question in the chat. Can you send a campaign more than once to a different segment? For example, new subscribers, and how to automate them. We'll get into that later. Yes, you can send a campaign out more than once to different people. But that might be something which is easier to automate. I will show you how to do that. And then if there's further questions, we can get into that at the end of the call. So design options. Klaviyo provides you with a bunch of templates you can use to start. And these are fine options. A lot of brands that we work with are brands that have a little bit more sort of investment into design, will actually choose to, design their own sort of more like controlled presentation. So here's sort of an example of what that would look like. In this case, these are just designed as flat design files and exported as images that are populated within the blocks. So, like, you could pick one of these templates, let's say, and maybe that's a starting point for you. And you can, similarly to the sign up form, you will replace your logo, you can replace your image. And this part should be fairly familiar if you've ever used like MailChimp as well. But let's say you want to do something more branded, you can drag in blocks and just put in images that link to destinations. So a lot of other brands will kind of like basically want to control the design on there, and so that everything looks more polished, and we'll do something kind of like that. Here's a bit of the drag and drop options in Klaviyo. They have a link, which I'll share at the end, where you can get inspiration. So take some time to also like assess what looks right for your company. There are some best practices within the design. You should have the logo that clicks back to your site. There should be really streamlined, clear content, and there should be some consistency with design and calls to action, so that, like, here in this example, the orange button is super prominent, and that is what I'm clicking to shop. So a lot of what we see with like areas to improve is just like there's too much going on. There's too much noise and clutter, and you want the type to be running minimal, and everything should focus on directing people to the site, whether that's to shop or to read a blog post, what have you. You must have unsubscribe and preference links in the bottom of the email campaign. That's just compliance. And you also really want to assess what is looking good on your phone. Pretty much all of us read email on our phone, especially if you're sending your campaigns in the morning when people are waking up and sort of going to their phone. It's almost more important for that to look good on your phone than it is on desktop. I see a bunch of questions coming in. Third-party design files integrate. not directly know because they provide so much of their own like tooling within the platform. So you just use their design tool. And fonts, I can address that at the end because that's definitely a common question. Okay, so we're creating our campaign. We're sending it to potential purchase. Let's say this is our campaign. I know it's not, but we're going to just pretend there. One of the things that you are going to want to think about as you grow into email marketing is that you can create an A/B test. What is an A/B test? It's basically a split test that divides up your audience and delivers them a slightly different experience to half the group, and then determines which one performs better and then sends that to the rest of the audience. This is not something that I would recommend trying until you have a pretty good sized list, because you're going to need a lot of people participating to have that be significant enough to judge your marketing on. But for example, if I'm emailing my potential purchasers, I could create an A/B test that has a different subject line than this one and see which one performs better. So this is a really powerful tool you can use to kind of, once you're more established, or if you're more established, look at like, okay, we want to get our open rates higher. We will be A/B testing our subject lines to see which one has a better open rate, and then we'll learn from that and incorporate it and build upon that in the future. So as I walk through, setting up my campaign, I get to the point where I'm ready to send it. It will flag for me, oh, you've left something blank. Make sure you fix that. What have you. You want to see that all checked off. Let's say we've resolved all those things. Now you can schedule it in the future, or you can send now. When you schedule it in the future, you see that not only can you pick the time, but you can pick like a gradual send over several hours. It's something if you're worried about like your site crashing because you have so much volume or something like that. And even the time to send can be A/B tested. So if like most of your audience is in Hawaii, pick a time that they're going to be alert and awake, which is typically going to be the morning, during the work week, like Tuesday through Thursday for most people. And that's across the board. If you're going to be sending out like a big chunky piece of content or a blog post, maybe send that on a Sunday, so these are things you can test as well. So let's say that, Charles receives my potential purchaser's email that talks about how delicious our biscotti is and offers, only people on that list a 15% off deal for their first order. And he finally, bites the bullet and makes a purchase. Then when I go in to look at Charles's history, I should see that he's been removed from my potential purchasers, and that his timeline will sort of resemble one more like Joanne, who bought an item already. So it's just sort of an example, hopefully, that illustrates it, of how tailored content really resonates with people and leads them to feel taken care of in a way that even goes beyond what you could do sort of in an in-person sales environment, because you have the benefit of the data to see how they're performing. So one thing you want to look at is like, once an email gets sent, these data points will start to populate. Where is there opportunity for me to grow or increase my click rate or my placed order rate, and kind of tailor from there. So always kind of looking back at that data to see how you can grow. Okay, so as we get towards near the end, I want to leave some time for questions. So I'm just going to go through the flows. Someone had a question about how to automate emails on a rolling basis. Campaigns in Klaviyo are your one-off marketing messages that you're sending out. Flows are your automated drip campaigns. And there's basically like an established suite of common ones that every e-commerce merchant has. As you go into your Klaviyo dashboard, you'll see like the tooling that'll set it up for you to help get started. And I'm going to go back to my deck and walk you through some of those. I'm going to go through 4 of them. These are the most common. Welcome series. Welcome series is a series of emails that are sent to new subscribers that are basically meant to reintroduce who you are and what you do, and why you're special. So here are some examples. This is a paint company we work with. Super, obviously all branded emails. Nice to meet you. Here's a warm welcome, and here's what we do. If you would like to find your color, you can start now. Or since you're a new customer, you might not know what are our most popular hues. And to finish it off, we have a little deal for you to jumpstart your paint project. So very different kind of content than someone who's already a customer might be getting. This is what the flow setup sort of looks like to deliver that on the back end. This is a different example, but it will follow a similar structure. I've anonymized it. So the trigger in the flow is when someone will subscribe to the list, and then a flow filter might be put in place to say they've only joined in the last 30 days, or they've never purchased, or really this can be anything. They immediately get sent the first email. It's nice to meet you. Usually that first email is just an introduction. A lot of people don't necessarily put a discount right away, but they generally have a high open rate, as you can see from this example. And then you track, how many were delivered, how many were skipped. If they were skipped, it's because they didn't actually meet the requirements later on. Maybe the flow filter meant that they would not have purchased and they did, so they've been skipped. They've removed themselves from the flow based on their actions. Then you can add in time delays and follow-up emails. Okay, now we've introduced ourselves. Next, we're going to give you a little bit about why our products are designed in a super cool way. And on and on. I mean, it can go, generally we recommend this not be more than 2 or 3 emails, but we've also seen brands that almost focus more on their email flows being really robust and split based on behavior than so that they're emailing more through their flows than they are for their campaigns. Abandoned cart. Lots of abandonment happens in e-commerce. This is when a customer has put in their email but has not completed checkout. So Klaviyo actually has their email and knows what products are in their cart, but is trying to get them to close and complete that purchase. So let's say this customer, Jane Doe, added a product to their cart but didn't complete checkout. We might send them a reminder email designed similar to this, like, hey, we saved your cart. Did you forget something? Check out now. And Klaviyo allows you to, with its integration, have this link go to their saved cart so that their products are there waiting for them. It can also even bring their products into the flow so that they can see them visually and be reminded, oh yeah, I did want that. I'm going to finish my checkout now. Super prominent call to action, very conversion focused. How many abandoned cart emails should you send? Again, don't recommend more than 2. It can be something where sometimes people just don't want the product. So not going too overboard with it. Here's sort of an example of this flow. It's a 3 email sequence. It goes and continues to the right. So people enter the flow and checkout is started. They haven't placed an order. If they do place an order, obviously they should not get the abandoned cart email, right? So where'd you go? Hey, don't miss out. A day later. And then 3 days later, is it us? Is it customer service? If there's any questions you might have. So this is an example of what I would say, to follow. 2 to 3 emails is enough. Win backs, encourage lapsed customers to come back. The reason we want this is, again, to keep our deliverability high and not email people who don't want the content. So it's okay to let some people go if they're not engaging with you, right? That ultimately will help your marketing perform better. So Wendy has never engaged with any of the content, and we can say, hey, we've noticed that you haven't been opening our emails. If you're willing to try our product, here's a last chance offer. But if not, no worries, we're going to unsubscribe you, so that our list is cleaned up a bit. It doesn't require too much effort of the recipient. They basically have to take no action to be unsubscribed, but it gives them an opportunity to come back in. This is ultimately a best practice to clean the list out so that people remain engaged that you're emailing, and people who aren't are not being bombarded. This is a bit of the back end of how that flow would be set up. So here are the flow filters for the attributes that sort of match Wendy's experience. And there's about 3-4 emails that kind of increase in intensity in terms of the subject line and urgency as they go through them. And people will fall off at different points. How often should you clean your list, or should you just keep them in another list? So the attribute I showed earlier for suppression in this example, if someone is still not engaging at the end of this win-back flow, they are marked as suppressed, and they go into a segment in Klaviyo that stores them there, but they're not emailed going ahead. So you can still keep, suppression means that you can still keep their data, but you could email them, but it's advisable not to. You can still keep their data. They're not unsubscribed, they're not deleted, but they are not being actively emailed anymore. And if you have these flows in place, then you don't really need to do it regularly unless you're getting a lot of subscribers through like maybe giveaways, people who are less familiar with you. I would say quarterly, it would be a good opportunity to do that. They do not charge you for suppressed emails. They charge you for how many you're actively emailing. So it's another thing, it saves you money to only kind of focus on the ones that you want. Seeing a lot of questions come in, so I'm going to wrap this up soon to get to all of those. And the last one I'll mention is like a product review or cross-sell. This is great for a customer who's tried like one product and you want to convert them into a more loyal, like a frequent buyer. So for Joanne, who's tried one vanilla, we might send her a follow-up email that talks about the chocolate, creating lust for a similar related item, using testimonials, using beautiful marketing to do so. And here's an example. So it's like they fulfilled the order where it was this item, and now they're getting a specific type of content that is like a complementary item for that. I'm going to leave the resources up on the screen as I go through the questions. But Ellen, do you want to maybe call out any that I missed, or if anyone else has them, we can go through and talk about the pilot program as well. And yeah.
Yeah. Can you actually see my screen? I mean, not my screen, my video.
I can see you. Yeah.
Oh, you can see me? Okay, great. As long as you can see me. I don't know what happened to my Zoom. No, I think you went through the questions unless I've missed it. But let's, we have about 7 minutes. So I'm gonna let, people just kind of digest what you shared while sharing some other information that, I kind of want them to know. So firstly, again, a reminder about the Klaviyo pilot project that we are taking applications for right now. It's open only to manufacturers, unfortunately. But if you are a manufacturer and you would like to leverage advanced email marketing, basically, creating more sales opportunities for your business using the Klaviyo platform, like how Akami was showing you earlier, make sure you submit your application by February 14th, Monday at 5 p.m. HST. Or Hawaii Standard Time. Two other things, we have 2 webinars and workshops on digital marketing coming up. So this coming Thursday, we have a webinar on branding in relation to e-commerce. And on February 18th, we have a 2-part workshop with Manamins on strategic planning for digital marketing. So I will also leave the links for that in the chat. But yeah, so that's what I have on my side. Does anyone else have other questions?
I think actually I see a few I got here. So techniques to Hawaii Farm Trails asked techniques to protect against fonts from showing up differently on the recipient's screen. One way a lot of brands deal with that is to do those custom designed ones. I mostly showed as examples because they want their brand fonts preserved. If you're using like the drag and drop tools and you're just typing into the builder on Klaviyo, it's not guaranteed that those fonts will be preserved, and often you may not even be able to use specific fonts that you have. That's just because email is a bit in the dark ages when it comes to web design, and every email client and browser will render fonts differently. So if you want that brand control, you might as well just design those in like a Photoshop as images and put them in. And let's see, I think I also answered Hawaii Farm Trails about sending campaigns more than once to different segments and automating them. I went through a lot of functionality. So I would encourage you guys, if you're curious about flows, to check out the resource here for Klaviyo trainings and support. Again, you can do the free account, or maybe, you know, give the input to Ellen and I on classes in the future. And let's see other questions that are there. Advice or suggestions on structuring offers that don't offer discounts right away. Super good question. A lot of us are trained to like get on those lists and wait for those discounts, but that might just not be feasible for your finances or for just the kind of company you are, if you're a high-end company. So structuring offers that aren't offering discounts. We have seen, it depends on if you want to do still some kind of offer. You don't have to do an offer in order to entice email. You know, these people willingly subscribe. So if you're providing like interesting topics or content, or you're releasing new items a lot, you don't need to have an offer in everything. You can just drive them to like learn awareness about what you're selling. But if you want an offer that's not a discount, we have seen like giveaways, you know, like, you know, share us on social media, you might get it like a product. We've seen things like that, which can help, you know, retain folks without necessarily like slashing prices on everything. And for the pilot program, someone is asking if having more than 7,000 subscribers is a hard requirement.
Yeah, I'm replying to that right now.
Okay.
So essentially, yes. Only because, you know, we understand that, you know, starting at that size of the database is where you get the best returns from Klaviyo as well. But, you know, I would recommend, if you're unsure, just send us an email, you know, and let us know what the size of your database is right now, because we look at several factors depending on where you are at the stage of your business to decide if you can be a good candidate for this pilot. So from Hawaii Farm Trails, either send me a DM right now, just let me know what your size of the database is, or email us separately after this webinar, and then we can advise if you should move forward with the application. Any other questions? And this session has been recorded, so I know Akemi gave a lot of great information, so you can definitely, you know, rewatch it just to get more, you know, to get more of a download of what she shared today. Okay, so great. So okay, so the person from Hawaii Farm Trails, if you want to send us an email, I see I got your information, but if you want to send us an email, I think that would be great. Then we can go from there. So I'll leave my email address in the chat. And I saw that Akemi just pulled out hers as well. So if you guys have any other questions regarding Klaviyo, please reach out to Akemi at hiddengears.com.
Yeah, thank you guys. It's a big world out there, a lot of stuff covered. Hopefully it was helpful. Curious to hear your feedback, and hopefully this can also apply if you're not on Klaviyo or your Shopify, but just sort of as a broad sense of what you can do now with digital marketing. So thank you guys so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Akemi. And to everyone else, again, reminder about the Klaviyo pilot project if you want to apply, and then our webinars on branding and the other one on strategic planning. All the links are in chat. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop me an email, and we'll be sending out the link to this recording in the next couple of days. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cami.